ever, we must address the environmental issues facing not only our country, but the entire world. Global warming is no myth. In the past 20 years, the polar ice caps have melted more than the past 10,000 years combined. Sea levels are rising at an alarming rate. If this rate is continued to allow unaddressed, climatologists estimate that sea levels could rise as much as 150 feet in the next 50 years, enough to engulf the entire state of New Jersey. Furthermore, the ozone layer, which protects us from the sun's harmful rays, is being depleted by excessive emission of greenhouse gases. Even the quality of air we breathe in is taking a hit. In many places, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide levels are approaching deadly heights. My plan for the environment will address these three major issues and lay the foundation for environmental reform in years to come. Big changes need to be made in this country in order to stop global warming. In 2011, the United States emitted an estimated 5.5 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This number is simply unacceptable, and a major source of the problem is the automobile industry. As president, I will enact a healthy highway plan requiring all new cars sold in this country to have a fuel economy of at least 25 miles per gallon. This plan will also subsidize American car companies and alternative fuel research projects. Hybrid and electric cars hold a promising future which cannot be overlooked. Despite being only a recent innovation, hybrid and electric cars can earn upwards of 50 miles per gallon, with some cars even exceeding 100 miles per gallon. These cars are what we need on the streets of America to minimize our nation's carbon footprint. However, I will not limit going green to just the automobile industry. I will invest in clean energy and green jobs. Under my presidency, the government will subsidize research on alternative, environmentally friendly energy sources, including solar and wind energy. We will also offer federal grants to businesses with environmentally friendly facilities and jobs in accordance with the Environmental Protection Agency guidelines. With these policies, I plan to reduce American carbon emissions by 20% by 2030. Together, we can do our part to halt ozone layer depletion, combat rising sea levels, and stop global warming. While global warming is the focus of many environmentalists, air quality is a growing problem. In fact, the EPA named global warming the second most pertinent environmental issue of our generation. Pollution is growing out of control. It causes the acid rains, which harms our crops and animals, and the smog, which leaves poisonous fumes in our cities. As president, I will raise emission restrictions for toxic chemicals on companies, cities, and factories. Tighter regulations need to be placed on sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and mercury emissions. These chemicals are introduced into the atmosphere through pollution, but they cause even more harm to naturally grown food and other plants. Plants absorb the chemicals from the air and fix it into the foods we and other animals eat. Through a phenomenon known as biological magnification, the animals that consume these chemicals show a 10% increase in the toxin levels in their body. The secondary consumers also show a 10% increase in the chemical levels. This means polluted food is not limited to simply fruits and vegetables, but also to meat and dairy products. In a recent poll, 62% of Americans identified pollution as a serious threat to themselves. I will combine stricter guidelines with tighter monitoring of companies to ensure these guidelines are followed. As president, I will keep toxic chemicals out of other animals, our food, and ourselves. The time for change is now. We cannot continue on the path we are on as a country. We must move past the mere adoption of environmentally friendly policies. We must make them beneficial. Together, we can reduce carbon emissions. We can make our cities healthier and keep dangerous chemicals out of our food. Together, under my leadership, we can return the American environment to its natural, healthy state. Thank you.
Any questions for her?
You talked about subsidizing like businesses and factories that promote reduced emissions. Would you give subsidies to auto companies that their cars have decreased emissions?
Well, our plan is for all cars to be sold in the United States to have a fuel economy of at least 25 miles per gallon, so we're expecting that is met, and that would be our policies with the automobile industry.
Are you saying for the 25 miles per gallon, would that be enacted right now?
No, in future years to come, we would have to set up a plan and see where we could start officially enacting be a starting point where we would feel comfortable that the industries would be capable of creating this for years to come.
So in how many years do you think?
I can't give you an accurate answer right now. We'd have to look at the statistics. Yes.
What would you do with all the cars that are out right now that aren't hiring?
See, that's the thing. We have to pick a starting point to eliminate the fuel economy of less than 25 miles per hour. So it would take time to get all the new cars on and all the old cars out. We would have to come up with a system of where we could possibly maybe trade in old cars with for new, or possibly even fix cars if we could implement different fuel economies into their systems. Chip?
What are you going to do about other countries that have no restriction of pollution, because their pollution can affect us?
Right. Well, first we need to start domestically. We need to start in America and work to build a better environment for ourselves, and then we can go on to help the rest of the world. But we need to start here first to set an example for the rest of the world.
So you're saying you would trade an old car for a new one? Where would the money come from that? Because
I'm just saying it's a possible option. We haven't figured out if that would be a viable option, but it's a way that we might be able to consider taking the old cars off the street and putting the new ones on. Karina?
In like poor countries like Mexico or like South America, there's a lot of pollution there. If we're gonna help them, like, do you plan on using like the American money to help?
Well, for right now, we really just want to fix our own country. We have to see. I have a speech coming up later about the economy and where we take our federal money and use it. So it is possible that if we're in a comfortable and secure place, that we could take our money and help other countries to create a better world for all of us. Yeah.
How would you promote initiatives to make the American public more aware about the environment and environmental conservation?
We would hope that Americans can see how this is affecting not just government officials, but everybody. We're all living in the same country. And hopefully we don't get to a point where they can visibly see how damaging it is. Obviously there are cities full of smog and acid rain. Farmers are dealing with pollution to their crops. And people can even get sick from the toxin levels in their bodies. So hopefully that would be enough incentive. But if that was not, we could figure out policies to help enact more environmentally friendly policies.
All right, it's kind of like Shiv's question. Would you be willing to jump onto a international treaty that governs like all the countries in the world? Like it says, okay, you have to have emissions levels at this rate, but the whole world would be on it.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to working with other nations. I mean, like I said in the first line of my speech, this is not a problem that's just that America is facing, it's a problem that the entire world is facing. So if we could all do our part to help lower all of our countries' carbon emissions and greenhouse gases, and that would beneficially affect the environment. Thank you.
You addressed rising sea levels, and as we saw with Hurricane Sandy, New York City in particular is vulnerable to these rising sea levels. How would you address these security lapses, I guess, or these safety lapses?
Well, right now, Congress is still working on a bill. Unfortunately, that hasn't gone through yet. So aid is being supplied will eventually be supplied to New Jersey and New York. But there's many options to helping the sea levels not to rise. I mean, there's bays and oceans in New York and New Jersey. You can build walls. There's also options with building on higher level. So we would just have to see what we can get through from Congress and then work from there.
But as we saw in Hurricane Sandy, like Lower Manhattan is vulnerable to the high surfs that can accompany hurricanes, and New Jersey, the shore towns are particularly vulnerable. Would you encourage maybe depopulation of these areas and evacuation so that catastrophes like Sandy won't happen in the future?
No, I don't believe that that's the best answer. Right now, we need people to be populating these areas in order to restabilize them and to build up their economy. Like myself, I have a shore house in New Jersey, and unfortunately, everything was fine with mine, but we wouldn't want people to leave the area and not be able to help rebuild the people that were lost. Although it is somewhat of a safety concern, right now we don't have an immediate pressing action to remove people from the area. So we would like to encourage people to rebuild and to help, and hopefully we can prevent these water issues.
All right, a big source of our pollution is from coal. A lot of our energy, our power plants are powered by coal. So do you think we should get away from coal? Now remember, coal was a big, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, we have a lot of it. So it's kind of sketchy whether we should get away from it because it'll hurt jobs, or do you think the environment should outweigh it? Where are you on that?
I don't believe that it should be the main focus of our energy. I think we should find other sources of renewable energy that through solar and wind. But I also don't believe that we should entirely rid of it. Again, so that would eliminate American jobs, and we would have to be, we would possibly have to use other countries to be energy dependent, and we would like to become energy independent and use clean energy. Jess?
You mentioned all these plans for like finding renewable sources of energy and creating these new cars, but how are you going to fund like all of these programs?
I have a speech coming up about the economy, so I'm not going to answer any questions about federal funding right now. So it'll be addressed in one of my later speeches. Thank you.
Do you consider nuclear energy as a viable alternative to fossil fuels?
If it can be harnessed and used in a positive and safe manner, then I believe that it could help